Hey there, Joe McCullough here. Welcome to your very first video blog. Since it's the beginning of the school year for most people, I figured it was the perfect time to do a blog on some mistakes that I see students make year after year after year. I know you're busy, so let's jump right into it. These are 5 common mistakes that I see students make all the time. Mistake number 1, quote unquote, multitasking. Now, multitasking in terms of walking and talking, that exists. You can walk and talk at the same time because walking and talking are both habituated behaviors. However, if we're thinking about learning something, really trying to pay attention and learn something, then multitasking does not exist. What we know is that multitasking divides our attention and makes us less efficient and less productive. So what does this mean? 1, if you're in class taking notes, put away your cell phone. It's impossible to pay attention to class and try and text and use your cell phone at the same time. 2, while you're doing work in front of your computer, make sure that you are only working. Close your email, close Facebook. Do not do anything other than what you're trying to accomplish, because every time you check email, check Facebook, your productivity drops. Things are going to take much longer than they should. So if you are going to multitask at your own risk. Mistake number 2 is cramming. Now this is a big one. One of the mistakes I see students make all the time is waiting until the very last minute before they begin studying for a quiz, test, or exam. One of the reasons this is such a bad idea is because we know it takes multiple exposures before something becomes committed to long-term memory. So if I'm learning a subject and I really want to remember it long-term, I need to be exposed to it 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Now, if you stay up late the night before an exam cramming, sure, you can pass the exam. And the reason is because that information is still going to be in your short-term memory. However, my guess is that if you stay up cramming for an exam, you're going to have to restudy all of that material again once it comes time for the final exam, because you haven't put in the necessary number of exposures before something is really learned and really committed to long-term memory. So if you're going to cram, if you're going to study the night before an exam, just know that you're living dangerously.
I also like to live dangerously. As you wish, sir.
So listen to Austin Powers, don't do it. Mistake number 3 is going to class unprepared. By this, I don't mean showing up to class without your notebook or pen or paper or calculator and things like that. Certainly that is a problem. But what I'm talking about in terms of going to class unprepared is showing up to class without any idea about what the instructor is going to be lecturing on. The reason this is such a bad idea is because it's really hard to take notes and listen effectively when you're being exposed to something for the very first time. Your brain is busy trying to decipher the vocabulary and the new terms and figure out exactly what the instructor is saying. Taking effective notes while that's happening can be very challenging. So how do you prepare for class? It's simple. Spend 15 minutes before class starts, the night before, as soon as you can, and review the material that the instructor is going to be lecturing on. That means just flipping through the textbook, flipping through lecture notes, just giving your brain an idea about what's going to be covered in class. That way, when you hear the terms and hear the new information, it won't be the very first time that you're being exposed to it. You're going to be more likely to remember it, having already been exposed to some of the terms in your brain. So spend 10-15 minutes before class starts and review the textbook, review whatever course materials you have so you know exactly what the instructor is going to be talking about. Number 4 is no big picture. What this means is not having the big picture and overview of how all the information that you're going to be learning fits together. The reason this is such a huge mistake is because learning a new subject, learning a new skill is like putting together a puzzle. And if you have no idea how those puzzle pieces fit together, it's going to be so much harder for your brain to put all the pieces of new knowledge into a cohesive framework. Think about it this way. Let's say you had a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, but you either lost the box, so you had no idea what it looks like, or let's even just say all the pieces are the same color, black. You have 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and all the pieces are black. Now, can you eventually fit together all the pieces and make a unified puzzle? Yes. Is it going to take a lot longer and be a lot more difficult than if you knew what the puzzle should look like? Yes. Learning a new skill, learning a new subject is a lot like putting together a puzzle. It's much easier if you know how the pieces should fit together. So before you take a new class, spend some time, flip through the textbook, get an idea of how everything fits together. It's going to give your brain the big picture, and it's going to make the learning that much easier. And our final mistake, mistake number 5, is always studying the same exact way. Meaning, always studying by rereading the textbook, rereading your notes, and then rereading the textbook and your notes again, rereading the notes again, and so on and so forth. What we know is that there's 3 main ways of taking in information for learning. Those are visual, everything that we see, auditory, everything that we hear, and kinesthetic, things that we do with our body. Now, when studying, ideally what we want to do is incorporate strategies that have a visual component, an auditory component, and a kinesthetic component. So let's take a look at some visual strategies, some auditory strategies, and some kinesthetic strategies. Some visual strategies include 1, using a mind map or learning map. If you're not sure what these are, Google mind maps, you'll find literally thousands of websites on it. 2, sit where you have a clear view of the instructor. If you tend to sit in the back row, take a moment and really think about why. What are you gaining by sitting in the back row? Try moving up a few rows, and in fact, sitting in the front row is a great idea. 3, take detailed notes using lots of color. What we know is that visual memory is our strongest. In fact, about half of our brain's resources are spent processing, storing, and analyzing visual data. 4, use a highlighter while reading. I know a lot of people do this already. 5, take some time and review the pictures and diagrams from your textbook. This can be simply flipping through and making a mental note of each picture and what it's representing. 6, summarize material using charts, graphs, pictures, and diagrams. 7, use multimedia such as animations and videos. With YouTube and other video sources out there on the web, there's so many great resources for people that like to learn through videos. And last but not least, create a mental picture and really try and visualize what you're learning. In terms of auditory strategies, 1, find a study buddy or a study group, somebody that you can study with and bounce ideas off. 2, great idea is explain what you're learning to others. If you can't explain what you're learning, then you don't really know it. 3, ask lots of questions during class. You should never be afraid to ask questions, and definitely do not let a question go unanswered. 4, definitely actively participate in all class discussions. If you're discussing something, jump right in, throw up a hand, and actively participate. 5, study in a quiet place away from verbal distractions. 6, a great idea, create musical jingles or mnemonics when memorizing material. There's something about music that just makes it stick. If you can put what you're learning into a song, I guarantee you'll remember it for a long time. You can also read the material out loud. The more dramatic, the better. So use lots of emotion while reading. And then last but not least, this is something that not many people do, but is such a good idea. Use a tape recorder, or in fact, use your iPhone or smartphone. Record yourself summarizing your notes and then listen to them in the car. Think about how much time you spend commuting. It's a really great idea to listen to yourself reviewing the material. There's just something about hearing your own voice review it that makes it stick that much better. And then last but not least, kinesthetic strategies include 1, taking notes in class, no brainer, everyone should take notes. And then if you have the time, rewrite your notes. 2, read the textbook. If at all possible, read it before class. 3, put a check mark at the end of each paragraph or page to show that you understand the material. Just a quick little check. 4, a great idea, make notes on index cards and Post-its and arrange in some kind of logical sequence that makes sense to you. 5, move your body, walk around while you read or listen to audio tapes. 6, it can help if you shift your position while sitting. 7, and this applies to everybody, take frequent study breaks. I recommend 45 minutes on, 10 minutes off. Don't try and study for 1, 2, 3 hours straight. Your brain starts to get tired. It's much better to study in a small chunk and then take a break. Some other ideas: create motions or gestures to help you remember content. So you'll notice when I say visual, auditory, kinesthetic, there's a motion involved. It's something that I learned when I first started teaching this to teachers. It's something that I'll never ever forget. And something you may not have thought of, chewing gum while studying can actually be beneficial for people that like to study using kinesthetic strategies. So that's about it. 5 common mistakes I see students make. These are mistakes that can really take you out of the game if you want to be a productive student and do as well as you can in your classes. Then avoid these mistakes at all costs.